Today, I show you some of the sickest punk rock and metal supergroups. Check it. My show! What's up guys, the Pop Punk Dad here with another feature video thing that I'm doing with my phone camera on the YouTube platform. If you're not familiar with what a supergroup is when members from one band and members from another band join together and they create their own little side project. Now I know that off the top of your head you're probably thinking of a couple of them out there, Journey and Cream and Chickenfoot. But I find the ones that are specifically tailored to punk. Some are kind of metal but they have punk members in them, and anything that's kind of a subgenre of that. So let's jump right on into it, but before we do, don't forget to subby up, fire your lasers on over to that like button, ring that bell to stay notified, and post score in the comments. Today's question I think is going to be that if you could build your own supergroup, what band members would be in it? Mine personally, I'd like to see Geddy Lee from Rush and Claudio Sanchez from Coheed and Cambria do something together. I think that'd be really interesting. So without stalling anymore, let's just jump into it. As I was saying, over the years there have been bands that have decided to take a break from their day jobs and start a side project, whether it be in another creative alternative direction or just to break away from that standard norm of what they're expected to be in the specific band they're in. Now with some artists have become their own standalone thing, like Skrillex and From First to Last, and Andy Black with Black Veil Brides. Others have decided to reach out to musical colleagues, friends that they've toured with, friends that they just know are really good musicians, and start their own side project. First off, if you haven't heard this band, you've probably been living on the rock for the last over a decade now. Straight out of hiatus with Blink-182 former guitarist / vocalist Thomas Matthew DeLonge, formed Angels and Airwaves late in 2005. I actually bought one of their first shirts they ever came out with before I ever heard a song from them. Affectionately known as Ava, named after Tom's daughter, and one of the pioneers of doing that whole upside down AV thing, Tom reached out to his punk rock pals Alan Willard, formerly the drummer of The Offspring, Ryan Sin, former bass player of The Distillers, and longtime boxcar racer pal guitarist Mr. Kennedy! The first album, We Don't Need to Whisper, was so hugely hyped up and anticipated. Everyone was so stoked to hear anything similar to Blink since they've been on a hiatus for about 3 years from that time. Their first single, The Adventure, was released slightly before their album came out, and it was pretty much everywhere at the time. And that first album, in my opinion, is probably my favorite album from the band. And while the years went on, they had a couple other albums, which sought the replacement of bassist Ryan Sin, and Tom didn't go skimpy on his bass guitarist talent replacement, as he enlisted 30 Seconds from Mars bassist Matt Wachter. I think I'm saying that right. And not soon after, Adam Willard dipped out and was replaced by Paramore and Nine Inch Nails drummer Ian Rubin. Now as of late we haven't heard much from Angels and Airwaves since Thomas started the To The Stars Academy. There have been many talks and rumors that the band is going to start recording a new record. As for this supergroup, their original lineup still remains one of the sickest in pop punk history. Now this next one is going to just completely floor you if you haven't heard of this band before. This band is called Teenage Time Killers and was created in 2014 by My Ruin guitarist Mick Murphy and Corrosion of Conformity drummer Reed Mullen. The two pals decide they're going to enlist pretty much everyone they possibly have ever met in their entire life in the punk rock, metal, and hardcore community. And other than Mick and Reed, this band has a metric shit ton of unofficial members, which I'm going to read to you. From the band's debut album, Greatest Hits Volume 1, some of the most notable unofficial members include Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters, Brian Baker of Bad Religion, Corey Taylor of Slipknot, Randy Blythe of Lamb of God, Neil Fallon of Clutch, Matt Skiba of Alkaline Trio and Blink-182, Jello of the Dead Kennedys, Tony Foresta of Municipal Waste, and the list goes on. Now while the band can't really tour with all of those members, they did happen to do a couple shows together. It's really awesome to see all of these musicians from different walks of life just get together to record a record. Now this next band started turning classic rock hits into punk tunes long before the Pop Goes Punk series came out. Starting in San Francisco in the early 90s, Me First and the Gimmie Gimmies was basically a joke cover band where they started playing a couple John Denver tunes and then decided to record them. In July, a couple years later, the band decided to record their first full-length record, which focused on 60s and 70s songwriters, and that whole theme thing stuck throughout all of their records. Current members include Fat Mike of NoFX, Joey Cape of Lagwagon, Spike Slauson of the Swingin' Utters, Chris Shiflett of the Foo Fighters, and David Ron of Good Riddance. Past members and touring members include Jay Bentley of Bad Religion, Eric Melvin of NoFX, and Scott Shiflett of Face to Face, The Offspring, and the Foo Fighters. Now, if you're around the Pittsburgh area, you might not like Me First and the Gimme Gimmies too much. In August 2006, Me First and the Gimme Gimmies were scheduled to play a 3-date show at PNC Park in Pittsburgh, PA, after the Pirates game. But after they literally got booed out of the stadium their first night, they didn't finish. Fat Mike went on to say that it wasn't a great move, that demographic just doesn't want their Skinner tunes touched. Moving on to a strange lineup from the punk genre. I guess you'd call it punk genre, punk hip hop. If you ever heard of the Garnier Fruit Teas commercial, then you've definitely heard of this band. The Transplants formed in late 1999 when Rancid frontman Tim Armstrong was sending his good buddy Rob Aston some songs. The project kind of went stagnant for a couple years, and then in 2001, they recruited Blink-182 drummer and longtime friend Travis Barker. For their touring dates, Tim recruited fellow Rancid bandmate Matt Freeman to play bass. In 2002, the band debuted their self-titled album, to which it saw guests like Davey Havok from AFI and Brody Dale from the Distillers. The band picked up steam with their 2 singles, DJ and Diamonds and Guns. Diamonds and Guns is the song that's actually on the Garnier Fruit Teas commercial. The band did a small hiatus in 2003 so Travis Barker can go record the new Blink-182 album and Tim can focus on some Rancid things. And then in 2005, they jumped back onto the Vans Warped Tour for a full cross-country stint. Their follow-up album, Haunted Cities, came out in 2005. And after that, they went on another hiatus until 2010, where their latest EP, Take Cover, rumors of another full-length album have been circulating, but nobody really knows as of right now. Now, I interviewed this band in a blog that I did. I'm going to leave that in the link below. These guys are absolutely brimming to the top with musical punk rock history, all stemming from members of the Street Dogs, Unwritten Law, and rooted with members of Lagwagon and the Scorpios. Well, I said musical punk rock history, it's because lead singer and pianist Brian Wellstrom got his start in the Scorpios and also played a big part in Broadway musicals. Taking the idea from this Broadway musical, piano-eccentric punk rock thing, Brian started this idea of a piano-eccentric punk rock band. He really started toying with this idea when he toured with Joey Cape of Lagwagon and his side project Bad Loud. The guys would warm up before sets and do sound check to Billy Joel tunes. That's when longtime friend and Street Dogs drummer Paul Rucker stepped in, who then later recruited Steve Morris of Unwritten Law to play guitar and Matt Riddle of No Use for a Name. The guys debuted their self-titled EP via Bird Attack Records in 2018, which is honestly one of the most unique, epic punk rock albums I've ever heard. Now for this next one, I have to jump it into a 2-parter because it's kind of the same guys, but it's just they decided to call themselves something else. First up is Foxboro Hot Tubs, and if that name rings a bell, it's because it's actually Green Day. Yeah, back in 2007, Green Day decided they're going to take themselves and their entire rhythm section and just decide to call themselves something else. They wanted to really break away from the whole, we have to play arenas and people are noticing us everywhere we go thing. Billy Joe Armstrong is quoted to say that they love to play music and be spontaneous, and after a few late night jams and a few too many bottles of wine, we were inspired to record some rockin' 8-track recordings. The band was basically totally secret until speculation started seeping out through the Green Day community, who quickly caught on to the guys' ruse. You really can't hide Billy's voice. The guys have a total punk rock feel and sound, and because of their hype and the amount of people that knew that they were Green Day, they actually had a couple TV spots, including Last Call with Carson Daly, and they even got to open up for themselves. Yes, they got to open up for Green Day. For Green Day's 2009 21st Century Breakdown Tour. Members of the band are Billy Joe Armstrong, just singing vocals, Mike Dern playing bass, Trey Cool on drums, Frosco Lee, one of their producers, on lead guitar, Jason Fries on saxophone, keys, and horns, and Kevin Preston, another friend producer, on rhythm guitar. Now, as I said, this is a 2-parter. Green Day hasn't done this not once, but this is the second time. The band also went under a bunch of stage names back in 2003, calling themselves The Network, similar to Slipknot. And they are Billy Joe Armstrong is The Fink, Van Gogh is Mike Dirnt, The Snoo is Trey Cool, Baladucci is Jason White, Z is Chris Dugan, Captain Underpants, not like the movie, is Redo Peter, and Dr. Svengeli as their band manager was John Roker. They were a trippy pop synth group that the band quickly signed under Billy Joe Armstrong's independent label Adeline Records, and in 2003 released their first album, Money Money 2020. Like with Foxboro, the band was shortly outed because of Billy's distinct voice, even though the band has went on record to say, fuck the network. Later rumors of a follow-up album were dismissed in 2008 when the band decided to just start another band, which was Foxboro Hot Tubs. Nothing's been heard of the band since then, and Billy's went on to do actually another project which is called The Long Shot. Give those guys a checking on out too. Now that we come to the end of the video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell. If you like hearing about these supergroups, why don't you just check on out my blog. I'll leave that in a link below. If you're feeling fancy and you're getting paid, why don't you just check on out the Pop Punk Dad merch store and buy things like this, and date. Helps the channel out and it lets me know that you love me. And above all else, don't forget to stay pop punk. Later.